Hello everyone and welcome to a soundtrack review. In this video I'm going to review The Runner by Boy Harsher. This is the original soundtrack for a short movie that has the same name done by Boy Harsher, though I think that the best way to put it is that this is a brand new album of Boy Harsher with a movie attached to it. The movie by itself serves more as a promotion for the new album, with the biggest and main focus on this being on the music. Now, I had the opportunity to actually see the movie the day it aired. I saw it on theaters knowing nothing about this movie and without listening to any of the teaser tracks beforehand, so I got into this completely blind, and I will actually make a short segment where I'm actually gonna make my first movie review, and I'm gonna talk about the soundtrack afterwards. So basically, in regards with the movie, what we have over here is a short film that only goes for 39 minutes, and in terms of the themes I kinda got what I expected. It is an experimental, artistic film going mostly in the directions of horror, which in my opinion seems kinda fitting with the sound of Boy Harsher. They have this really intriguing Darkwave sound, and even if I haven't really been that much of a fan of some of the works they've done in the past, there are certainly moments in their discography where it comes to some of their tracks that I have really enjoyed. Now, this movie actually starts with an introduction and an advertisement of a pedal also called The Runner, which sounds and seems pretty cool, and I like that they actually made the advertisement in this tongue-in-cheek note. It is actually quite humorous, and I like that it doesn't really take itself that much seriously. Then we get into the movie where it's basically like this story about this mysterious girl that is going around the woods in these low residential areas killing people. She basically goes into this killing spree, and I like that they've actually created this mysterious aura to her. We never really learn anything about her. She has these dead expressions in her eyes. It's a nice touch that they've actually made her being this completely silent character throughout the entirety of the movie, and yeah, it's like we basically see the segment of her life going into this killing spree. There are a few gore scenes, but it's never to a point where it's more than what I expected. The movie has this constant dark and haunting atmosphere to it, and keeping this mysterious tone as at the end of the day we learn nothing about this girl or why any of this happens. It leaves it to your imagination, which is something that I'm fine with. I like movies that don't necessarily have to explain everything that's going on, but the thing is that the movie doesn't really have a plot to it. It's mostly just about the music, the visuals and the aesthetics. Apart from that, there is nothing about the movie itself that really impressed me. I would say that in anything it does, it just seems pretty decent. It has some decent cinematography, it has some decent effects, it has an okay concept and atmosphere, decent performances, and that's all basically about the movie. Like, there's not really that much to add beyond that. I think that it's just a pretty okay movie, but it doesn't really have something that I would say it's really memorable or something that was stuck to me. I think that for the purpose it serves, it's actually a pretty enjoyable movie. I like the movie, but it's just that there's not something like beyond that. I think that it's just an okay movie with nothing really memorable to it, but it's not like it's the main focus. The main focus comes to the music, which in this regard I think that we actually get some of the greatest material Boy Harsher have ever written. I was actually pretty impressed with the music on this thing. There are a few themes over here that feel like they're more aligned with the context of like a soundtrack of a horror movie, but apart from that we get tracks that you can just take them separately and have them fitting nicely as their own unique experiences. I mean, at the end of the day, the movie would just simply have moments where they would play songs in their entirety, and it's actually one of my favorite things when it comes to the movie. I like that they made this meta thing where in the movie itself it's announced that they're playing soundtracks for a movie. I think that this was a really nice and clever touch, and what I like about this album in particular is that Boy Harsher ended up going into many different styles of darkwave music, with some of them actually working fascinatingly well. Some of them ended up being some of their darkest and most aggressive tracks in their catalog. Others actually end up being some of their most fun and catchy. And the nice thing is that most of the executions, in my opinion, work really well. And it's nice to see this album being so varied and having so much to it, even if we're talking about a project that is less than 30 minutes long. What I would personally prefer about the album in particular is if the track listing was different. I would prefer it if the track listing was the same as how the tracks were played in the movie, because the track listing over here is a bit different, and in my opinion it worked really nicely when it comes to the movie with how the tracks were placed. In this one it feels a bit disconnected in my opinion, it doesn't feel that great. For example, I would like for the track Autonomy to be at the final songs, just like it was at the end of the movie. In my opinion it seems more fitting, but it's just nitpicking at this point. I don't really care that much if the track listing was a bit different. It's not like it bothers me, it's just a preference of mine. Now when it comes to the tracks, Tower is one of the highlights for me. It nicely sets the tone for the album as the Darkwave synths and beats build nicely this dark and haunting atmosphere, and I like that towards the second half we get a progression and the tone of the track changes and it has these really aggressive portions that sound really refreshing for Boy Harsher, and it makes for some of the most interesting directions I've seen the band go with their sound. So yeah, that was a pretty interesting direction and I really enjoyed that song. Give Me a Reason was played in a portion towards the movie where it was pretty fitting, but in my opinion it was not one of my favorite moments musically. I think that it's a pretty okay Darkwave song that has some nice catchy elements, but it was one of the tracks that felt kinda basic for me and not really having some of its greatest moments. I still enjoy the song though. Now when it comes to the track Autonomy featuring Cooper B. Handy, I was a bit indifferent at first because it was a bit of a change of pace. This is a track that is much more tongue-in-cheek and goes into some more of like cheerful directions of synthpop music. However, the aesthetics end up feeling really cool. I actually ended up enjoying the instrumental a lot and it became a grower. The more I would listen to this song, I just like how catchy it is. I think that the chorus is really cool, and yeah, it actually became one of the moments that I enjoyed the most out of this album. It's a bit of a different change of pace and I can understand why some of you might not find this track particularly enjoyable, as it doesn't really feel that much of like a Boy Harsher song, but I ended up really liking the risk they took with this one. I think that it goes into some really nice directions. The Ride Home is one of those interludes that fills with one of the scenes in the more horror-esque and mysterious sections of the movie. I think that it's a pretty nice song when it comes to some of the dark ambient elements that it contains. Then we get the track Escape, which out of the main tracks over here with like vocals and a more of a darkwave aesthetic, it was the one track that felt like the most uninteresting to me. I think that it's okay, it has some decent beats, but I didn't really end up feeling that this track in particular was one of the strongest moments out of everything that was contained over here. By far my favorite moment has to be the track Machina, featuring Mariana Saldana, whose vocals over here are absolutely gorgeous. I really like the vibe out of this one in particular. It is one of those tracks that goes once again into a bit of a catchier and more cheerful approach compared to what we're used to from the sound of Boy Harsher, but this one is such an amazing Italo disco banger. This one is awesome. I really like the melodies on this one. It has a really catchy, infectious chorus, and it's definitely gonna be actually one of my favorite songs of the year. From everything I've heard so far, I was really impressed with this track in particular. I think that it's awesome. The Untitled piano interlude ended up being an amazing dark ambient track in my opinion. The piano portions on it sound awesome and it's an effectively haunting track. And finally there's the track I Understand, which I believe it's towards the credit rolls, which at this point it's just a pretty forgettable track that doesn't really serve something that much into the movie or in the soundtrack. It's pretty forgettable and it just happens to be there. So when it comes to the short film, I'm gonna give The Runner a 6 out of 10. Like I said, I think that it's a pretty enjoyable experience and I had a nice time watching it. However, there's not really something more to it than just that. There are a few cool ideas, but there's nothing really that much exceptional or that memorable. It's good for what it is, and it serves as an attachment to what I would consider to be the greatest work out of Boy Harsher so far. The Runner is my favorite album out of them. I saw Boy Harsher going into a few different directions, taking a few risks, and having their most varied and their most intriguing album in their entire career. In some aspects, I ended up feeling that this album was kinda refreshing for the band, going into a few directions that were slightly out of their element, but most of them were executed nicely, releasing what I would say it's arguably one of the most exceptional Darkwave albums that I've heard in quite a while. So I'm gonna give the Runner original soundtrack an 8- out of 10. What's your opinion in this movie and soundtrack? Like it, dislike it, why? And what do you want me to review next time? Let me know down in the comments. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video, subscribe for more content like this. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video. Goodbye.